If you enjoy what I do or would like to see my content improve, please consider donating at patreon.com, subscribestar.com, or a one-time PayPal donation. Links in the description.
Don't touch me, you weirdo!
You're overreacting. Relax.
No, I'm not, you creep!
Some people can't handle the rigors of this job.
Hey, hello, how do you do? Shady Doorags here. So I've gotten request after request asking for a video on the next series made by Lisa Hannawalt. Finally, a show with the potential to be just as down-to-earth and meaningful as what we've come to expect from the dark and gritty atmosphere of Bojack Horseman. Don't look at me, you guys wanted this. In fact, you wanted it so badly, you said it was more important than the Big Mouth video I keep putting off. Well, I say give the people what they want. Especially what they want isn't Big Mouth. For weeks, I sat down and wrote out a long, detailed script on what I did and didn't like about this show, explaining intricately whether or not it was worthy to hold the mantle that Bojack Horseman has. I then threw out that script and recorded this one instead. Tuca and Bertie is a show about two women who are anthropomorphic birds. Tuca is a toucan with very little structure in her life, while Bertie is a, robin? With so much structure, it oftentimes hinders her from trying new things.
And you never want to have fun adventures anymore? You'd rather stay at home and be boring.
I don't want to be boring. I want to know that everything's going to be okay so I can relax.
The show follows these two as they deal with balancing their lives after having just separated as roommates. Simply put, yes, this is a quality show and could potentially be the next Bojack Horseman. It's very similar to the Bojack formula, disguising itself as a comedy only to then hit you in the feels with real-world problems. But it's also very different from Bojack Horseman in ways that makes it stand out on its own.
Ladies and gentle birds, and plants, humans, and sometimes inanimate objects that talk. What a weird world!
If you were waiting for the Shady Doorags seal of approval before checking out this show, well, here it is. Check out this show. But, while I can say that overall it is a quality show, that is very different from saying it's a show that I like. And, yeah, I don't like this show. I mean, I don't dislike it either, but I kept going through season 1 more out of obligation than entertainment. There are many reasons why the show just didn't interest me, but most of them basically boil down to, it's not for me. For example, the show puts a lot of focus on Bertie's identity as a woman, which isn't something I can relate to.
Yikes. It's just, sometimes I feel like it's a man's world and I'm just a little leaf getting blown around.
But there is one problem I found that I not only think is more objective, but could be detrimental for Tuca and Bertie in becoming the type of show it's striving to be. One subject this show tries to tackle is dealing with handling harassment. On multiple occasions, Bertie is dealing with other characters who do inappropriate things to her. The two most notable examples are when her co-worker Dirk makes an inappropriate comment about her sweater.
I just need to buck up and ask Holland for something.
Oh yeah? Is that why you wore that tight sweater today?
What?
And when her boss, Pastry Pete, forcibly holds her head over a boiling pot while training her.
Feel it.
The lesson that both of these moments are teaching is how one should stand up for themselves and others when being harassed. Now that's a fine lesson to teach, but there's one very important ingredient missing: the perspective of the other side. Here's the thing about harassment.
Just say the thing. You don't need to introduce the concept that there's going to be a thing.
Unlike most other crimes, harassment is only considered to be so when the actions done are unwanted. You can take something from someone without permission, and in doing so, you've stolen from them. They can choose not to press charges or even be completely fine with it, but you still meet the definition of having stolen from them. Harassment doesn't work like that. You can do the exact same actions to two different people, and for one it'll be considered law-breaking, while for the other it's perfectly okay. The only difference is whether one is okay with it. Context is key. This makes it more easy for a person to harass someone by complete accident than other crimes. When examining these examples of harassment, I wanted to know whether or not Dirk or Pastry Pete believed what they were doing was wrong, because, as I've discussed in the past, intention puts a new perspective on things. However, neither Dirk nor Pastry Pete's perspective were considered seriously. Both of these characters are instead treated like villains, as if what they did was absolutely wrong from every angle and there was no justifying it. Dirk tries to give some excuses, but nobody is willing to listen.
Dirk, what you said to me yesterday made me uncomfortable.
Whoa, hey, I was just kidding around.
It was inappropriate!
And Pastry Pete isn't even told why Bertie is so upset with him, as if what he did was so bad he should have seen it coming from a mile away.
You know what? I quit.
Why?
I'm going to open my own bakery.
Come on, Shady, why should their perspectives matter? They did something wrong. Bertie is the victim here, only her perspective is important. First of all, bad is a matter of perspective. Second, yeah, it's not like there's a show that specifically talks about horrible people and how when we take the time to understand their perspective, we see that they're just as human as everyone else and we gain a deeper understanding of the situation than when we entered. One important lesson that Bojack Horseman teaches is that the antagonists of our lives are not always the villains of society. In fact, Bojack Horseman goes so far as to say that sometimes we are the villains to other people, even when we're trying to do the right things. Yes, storytelling-wise, there is nothing wrong with excluding the perspective of Dirk and Pastry Pete, but I get the vibe that Tuca and Bertie, like Bojack Horseman, doesn't just want to tell the story. It wants to have a conversation. But a conversation involves hearing from multiple sides. Riddle me this. What if Dirk and Pastry Pete didn't know they were in the wrong? What if when Pastry Pete was growing up, he had his head shoved into a boiling pot and it made him a better chef, so that's why he does it to his pupils? What if Dirk gets sexually harassed all the time and thinks of it as jokes or compliments, which is why he does it to other people? Would you see them in the same light as you would with how they're currently being presented? I'm not saying that's their reasoning, because we don't know their reasoning. I'm saying it could be their reasoning, and that would make the current way they're being presented more villainous than their actual actions. I want to make myself clear. Bertie is not wrong for standing up for herself. She wasn't even wrong for getting upset at what they did. One violated her personal space, while the other made an inappropriate comment. My critique is more on the fact that the show presents these people as villains because they did something that Bertie was uncomfortable with, when it very well knows that there are people who would be fine if they were in those same circumstances.
A coworker made a super gross comment about my body.
Eesh, who did that?
It was Dirk.
Oh, he's cute. Lucky you.
I have been in situations where I did something that made others uncomfortable, and I didn't know. I've also had people do things to me that made me uncomfortable and they didn't know. According to how this show presents Dirk and Pastry Pete, anyone who does that is a villain and they should be treated as such without justification.
You made me think about my own body at work. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh, bodies are terrible.
Oh, let's not get into a mob mentality here.
Dirk, I think you should pack your things and leave the office for the day.
Look, I know it's difficult for some people to hear me being upset at a show that tells victims to stand up for themselves, but my channel is all about empathy, even empathy for those who do things I find distasteful. One of the reasons Bojack Horseman is so beloved is because it showcases what most would consider to be an immoral person in an empathetic light. If Tuca and Bertie just want to preach to the choir and have people who already relate to the main characters feel their feels, then fine. But if it wants to be as meaningful as Bojack Horseman was, it needs to be willing to hear all the voices. And I know it's capable of doing this because it does it elsewhere. One of my favorite scenes is when Bertie's boyfriend Speckle releases his frustration because of how Bertie's been treating him, showing that there are more sides to your actions than just what you perceive. Don't get me wrong. There are actual villains out there in the world. People who intend to do evil and don't care how it affects those around them. But to paint people who do things you don't like as a villain without considering their side of the story is the opposite of what Bojack Horseman tried to accomplish. This has been Shady Doorags. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.
Wait, did he grab you too? You don't understand. It's just part of the job. And how he teaches, he's very passionate. Why are you defending him? I'm not trying to... I don't know. And you didn't warn me. You know what he did was wrong, right?